It's all covered in today's China Truths.
When Moscow finally pulled the plug on Chinese trucks, the decision sent shockwaves through both Russian businesses and Beijing's auto industry. Complaints had been piling up for months: brake failures, deafening noise, flimsy seat belts. For many Russian buyers, the so-called honeymoon with cheap Chinese imports was over. Take the story of the Alexandrovsk Commercial Association. In September 2024, the small transport firm proudly purchased a FAW manipulator truck, hoping to cut costs. But after just 3 months and barely 10,000 kilometers on the road, the gearbox collapsed. To make matters worse, the dealer refused to cover repairs under warranty. The desperate owner spent another 3 months hunting for parts, ultimately paying nearly 8 million rubles, around $100,000, for the fix. The nightmare didn't stop there. By July 2025, yet another FOU truck broke down after 200,000 kilometers, this time demanding a 2 million ruble engine swap. Frustrated and humiliated, the owner shared his ordeal online, sparking a wave of sympathy and a storm of criticism aimed at China's Tofu-Dreg trucks, infamous for their poor quality. Few imagined such stories could rattle Russia's no-limits friendship with China. Yet in a stunning reversal, Putin's government announced a sweeping ban on Chinese trucks this summer. On July 30th, 2025, Rosstandart, the Russian agency in charge of vehicle safety, revoked the type approvals for major Chinese brands, including Dongfeng, Foton, FAW, and Sinotruk. Inspectors found glaring violations during surprise audits, concluding that the defects were so severe they posed a direct threat to public safety. The suspended models included Dongfeng DFH4180, Foton BJ4189, and M4L, FAWC A4250, and CA4180, as well as Sinotruk ZZHS. Even trucks already approved in other Eurasian Economic Union countries weren't spared. Dongfeng DFH 52000B, Foton H5, and FAW JH6B 8X4 and all made the blacklist. Overnight, these vehicles were barred from Russia's roads. The problems uncovered were serious. Investigators flagged faulty brakes, dangerous noise levels, missing emergency systems like EIRAGL, ONASS, and poor safety labeling. On top of that came violations ranging from excessive emissions and non-compliance with radiation standards to weak seatbelt fittings, poorly designed seats and headrests, and missing underrun protection. Each flaw increased the risk not only to drivers, but also to pedestrians and other road users. Rosstandart responded with tough orders. Manufacturers must recall every defective truck already on the road, pull unsold vehicles from the market, and resolve every violation, or face stiff penalties. The move followed an earlier warning in February 2025, when Trade Minister Anton Alekhanov sounded the alarm about defects in several Chinese brands, hinting that stricter rules and revoked certifications might be coming. Behind the headlines lies a deeper issue. While Russian operators groan under the cost of constant repairs, China has been cashing in. Business Insider reported that Chinese automakers sold over 1 million vehicles in Russia in 2024, a 7-fold jump from the year before. According to OSW, Chinese brands captured nearly 60% of passenger car sales and 65% of truck sales that year, compared to barely 2% and 1% back in 2019. By flooding Russia with low-priced vehicles, Beijing filled the gap left by Western manufacturers, but treated the country as nothing more than a dumping ground for imports. A 2024 Statista chart makes the scale clear. Sinotruk alone sold almost 20,000 trucks, while Russia's own Kamaz struggled at 17,000. That reversal has left domestic producers fuming, watching their market shrink under the weight of China's bargain basement strategy. Now, with safety concerns forcing a government crackdown, Russia's uneasy dependence on Chinese vehicles has erupted into a full-blown crisis. 2025 has turned into a nightmare year for Russia's truck industry. According to Autostat, only 22,000 heavy-duty trucks were sold in the first half of the year. But the real shock was this. Chinese brands like Sinotruk, Shackman, and FAW grabbed nearly 37% of the market, overtaking Kamaz, Russia's pride, which was left with just 31%. Even worse, the overall market collapsed by almost 56% compared to last year. China's aggressive price war hit Russian makers hard. Kamaz and GAZ were forced to cut working weeks down to just 4 days starting July 2025. The Moscow Times and the Bell report that heavy truck sales plunged by 60%, devastating Kamaz financially. Net profit for 2024 collapsed 28 times compared to the year before. Shareholders got nothing, no dividends at all. On top of that, over 30,000 imported trucks are sitting idle in warehouses, unsold, pushing Kamaz deeper into crisis. But sales numbers are only part of the story. Despite soaring market share, Chinese trucks keep running into the same problems: poor durability and failure to adapt to Russia's brutal climate. Why? Because manufacturers slash costs at the expense of quality. One major weakness is corrosion protection. Russia's online insurance platform, Sarin Kupi, studied vehicles across 26 regions, where winters often plunge to minus 40 degrees. Their findings: Chinese trucks failed to meet GOST standards for freeze resistance and anti-corrosion. By comparison, European brands offer 12-year rust protection. Dongfeng promised 3 years, but rust appeared in 2. FAW claimed 5 years, but corrosion hit in 4. Great Wall promised 6 years, but also failed after 4. Many Russians concluded Chinese trucks just aren't built for Russian winters. Safety is another weak point. In April 2025, Rostendart recalled 18,559 BAW vehicles for lacking ERA GLONASS, the emergency call system required in all Russian vehicles. And these trucks aren't even cheap. Prices start at 2 million rubles, $25,000, sparking more frustration. Nikolai Koksharov, the director of a Russian trucking firm, didn't mince words. Chinese trucks chase low prices, not quality. He explained that while up to 70% of parts can be swapped across brands like Dongfeng, Photon, FAW, and Sinotruk, that doesn't make them reliable. One recurring nightmare is the fifth-wheel coupling, which fails often and demands constant repairs. On the auto forum Drom, drivers listed their top complaints: clunky electronics despite low quality, rapid depreciation, weak metal and paint, higher fuel use than Japanese or European rivals, bad ergonomics, uncomfortable seats, and even screen glare. But what truly infuriates Russian buyers is the after-sales service, or lack of it. Automotive Logistics reported that some customers wait up to 6 months for repairs due to spare parts shortages. One infamous case came from the Alexandrovskoye Commercial Association. When a FAW truck's gearbox failed, the owner turned to a dealer in Yofa for help. Instead of assistance, he was denied warranty coverage with the excuse, "This isn't a standard dump truck model." Even when he offered to pay for repairs, the response was, "No replacement gearboxes are available, and they likely never will be." As he pressed harder, the dealer's tone turned hostile. "Since you keep complaining, we'll charge you the maximum." In the end, the company had to pay 500,000 rubles, about $6,200 for a gearbox with no guarantee it would even fit, plus sky-high service charges. Faced with growing anger, Moscow has launched a 3-pronged strategy since 2024 to shield domestic manufacturers and cut reliance on Chinese imports. One of the toughest measures came in October 2024 with a massive hike in recycling fees, up 70 to 85% for imported vehicles, with annual increases of 10 to 20% until 2030. Medusa reports this policy will add roughly 15% to the cost of imports, tilting the market further toward Russian brands. The impact has been immediate. In just the first 2 months of 2025, imports of Chinese vehicles to Russia plunged 49% compared to the same period last year. The Yikai Global recently revealed shocking numbers from the China Passenger Car Association. Only 57,592 passenger vehicles were shipped abroad during the reporting period, a staggering drop compared to previous years. What's worse, profit margins have collapsed. Automakers that once pocketed $3,000 to $5,000 per unit are now scraping by with just $500 to $1,000. And in some cases, losses have piled up due to payment delays tied to sanctions. With Russian brands like Kamaz and Diaz already buckling under financial pressure, Moscow's new restrictions are seen as an effort to reclaim control of its car market and protect the survival of its local players. But the drama doesn't stop there. Western sanctions have added another explosive twist. Both Washington and Brussels are keeping a close eye on Beijing's expanding ties with Moscow, especially when it comes to anything that could bolster Russia's war machine. They've drawn a hard red line. Even indirect support, like trucks that could be repurposed for military transport, will not be tolerated. Models such as the FAW-CMA-4250 or Sinotruk ZS may look like civilian haulers, but with a few adjustments, they can carry ammunition, food, or equipment straight into combat zones. The White House has gone on record, vowing to unleash every tool available to block shipments that might strengthen Russia's defense industry. This warning has left Chinese manufacturers trapped in a dangerous balancing act. The Russian market is massive. Last year, it was China's #1 export destination, larger than the next 4 markets combined. But closer cooperation risks secondary sanctions that could devastate Chinese firms worldwide. For Russia, this tug-of-war is part of a much deeper crisis. The country lacks cutting-edge tech, from semiconductors to hybrid engines, and homegrown giants like Lada and Kamaz can't keep up internationally. With Western imports shut down, Russia has little choice but to lean on China, even while fearing total dependence. It's a partnership built on necessity, not trust. And the current ban on Chinese trucks shows just how fragile that relationship really is. The so-called no-limits friendship is hitting its first serious test. Roughly 15,000 imported trucks have already been stripped of their registration documents, leaving them unsellable and rotting in lots. The message from Moscow is loud and clear: rebuild domestic industry at any cost. For Beijing, the lesson is even harsher. The days of rushing into Russia for fast profits are over. Export numbers have been slashed, profit margins gutted, and reputational damage is mounting. Chinese truck makers are now forced to grapple with the fallout of chasing quick money while ignoring compliance and localization. The golden era of unchecked expansion has officially ended. What lies ahead is a murky battlefield of sanctions, regulations, and political risks, where one wrong step could cost everything.
Please share your thoughts in the comments section below. We will keep reporting on the COVID surge in China, so don't forget to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell to get the latest videos. And thank you for tuning in.